Good afternoon. Welcome to today's presentation. I want to discuss, welcome you to my class of Introduction to Research Methods, Lesson 1. I am Patrick Nyamemba Nyakundi. I'm a lecturer at Department of Food and Beverage at Kabune Technical Training Institute. Welcome. As we know about research is a very important unit to you as students, especially in food and beverage or accommodation and foods and accommodation. So we are going by the end of the unit, you should be able to define some terminology. You should be able to highlight the importance of research. You should be able to describe the types of research. You should be able to outline challenges faced by researchers also in the field. So let's begin with the definition of terms. And the first term that you're going to look at is research. So basically, research is like moving from point A, which is known to you, all the way to point B. So when you do like that, let's say that point B is unknown to you, however you know point A, you can be able to move from where you know as you are asking for direction of point B. By the time you are done, you're finding out you're reaching this destination, then you'll have undergone through a research and you'll have solved the problem that you had. Okay, so research methodology. So for research methodology, it is a way to systematically solve the research problem. As we've mentioned before, that you having a problem, you don't know point B, yet you want to get there. So you have a research problem here, and the research is how do you get to point B? And since you know point A, and we are assuming probably the distance here is 5 kilometers. The simple, if you have somebody who is quick with technology, you can go to your phone, then go to Google Maps, and it can give you direction to get here. So it is a systematic way. You've got to begin from point A as you're heading to point B. Okay. Another term that you want to illustrate is population. So what is a population? A population is a whole set or entire group of individuals having common observable characteristics. So let's say you want to do a study amongst restaurants. You want to look at their quality of services they offer. So restaurants becomes the number of restaurants that we have becomes your population. And you can imagine how many restaurants we have in Kenya. They can be over 1,000. Yet it will be impractical to actually carry out a research on all these restaurants. So what you're going to do is, since restaurants have got already a common, they have got a common characteristics. They are offering services or food. They are offering food to their clients. All of them have got observable characteristics, and it's a group. All the restaurants becomes entire group of this of your study. So it qualifies to become a whole set, and it's from this whole set that we get something else. We get a very interesting thing called called a sample, a study sample. So as a study sample is a subset and a representation of a population. So if you are looking at restaurants, there's no way you are going to look at something else like other offices or other chains that are not restaurants, since they don't have a common describable characteristics. So now once you've got all those population in place, the ones that you can be able to number them down, they become your sampling frame. Then from the sampling frame of, let's say, 1,000 restaurants, you're going to sample maybe 10% of it, which is 100, and that becomes a subset of your population, who becomes now the sample that you're going to study to use to represent the whole population. Another terminology is data. Data is that information gathered by a researcher for his particular study or our particular study. This is the data that the researcher is going to analyze in order to interpret and come up with the meaningful information that is going to explain his problem. Another one is variable. A variable is a measurable characteristic that assumes different values amongst the subjects. So for example, you'd want to look at to do nutrition assessment. You are doing nutrition assessment amongst children under 5 years. So one of the things that you're going to measure is weight. So weight here becomes a variable, and we are saying that it assumes different values. This is because if you are going to weigh 10 children, all of them are not going to have like 10 kgs. You find that one is having 10.1, the other one is having 10.2, the other one is having 13, that's why we are saying that it assumes different values in a population or amongst the subjects. So that's very important for you to note. That point is very important. Okay, then, so let's move to the second objective. What are the importance of research? Research is very important because it's going to give you information that's going to answer your problems. So first of all, research brings about scientific and inductive thinking, and it promotes the development of logical habits of thinking and organization. As we mentioned, it is systematic. Which means it begins from point A of step 1 to step 10. So it is systematic. It's going to begin from the beginnings as it goes to completion. And as you are doing like that, you are going to invest a lot of logical into your into different levels and steps that are very part and parcel of the process of research. So it's going to develop the organization as well as the researchers in their thinking and their address of the research problem. Number 2, it provides the basis. For nearly all government policies and economic system. The reason why we have government policies in place is because a research was done to realize that we need to put some structure in place to answer to the needs of the people. So without research, we cannot know what are the needs, what are the gaps that exist. and how can these gaps be answered. Without research, that one is not possible. So the genesis of the policies that are existing is due to the research that has been conducted, and it has shown that we need this particular policies to address certain economic issue. Thirdly, it solves various operational and planning problems in various fields. So even as students, for example, you've applied to do a certain course in a particular institution, let's say institution B, and in this institution B, you don't know where it is. So so one of the problems that you're going to face is where are you going to live? Where are you going to get accommodation? So by doing research, maybe internet research, you realize that there is hostel A, which is offered by the school. There's other hostels which are offered by other private agencies around, private developers. So you are going to do research, and through your research is going to answer such questions as the rent that is charged by the school, as well as the rent charged by those private developers, their rent. So you're going to compare and you look at which one is cheaper. If your worry is about getting food, then it's going to influence where you're going to reside, and that one solves your problem. It helps you plan ahead before you go back to you get admitted to that school. So that's very important to you. Next is research is very important. It is used in studying social relationship and in seeking solutions, in seeking answers to social problems. So for example, if in a certain, like the way we heard in central part of Kenya, the men are beaten up by their wives. So the problem is, as a researcher, you come up with a research question: why are men beaten up by women? What could be the reasons that explains this phenomenon? So you are going to do a study and come up, probably men are not responsible. Probably men are not responsible. And if they are not responsible, what can be done to make them responsible? Probably you can come up with a solution of sensitizing, maybe coming and empowering men to be responsible. So that one can solve that social problem in central Nyanza, in central Kenya. Another aspect of research is that it's very important to students to attain higher qualification for their career advancement or high position in social structure. By doing research, you are able to achieve your master's, you're able to do your postgraduate. Actually, postgraduate studies are mostly research oriented. These are people whose model of their study is based on problem based. They are going to solve problems in our society. Then by professions, they can use research also as a source of livelihood. There are people who are doing research and they are earning from that, and they are making money and supporting their families. So it's very important to those professions who are researchers in academic institutions. It is also an outlet for new ideas, insights by philosophers and thinkers. It is through researchers that we fill the gaps that are existing. We fill the gaps, and these gaps, they are called knowledge gaps. And by that, we have new ideas and we have new insight, which builds up our knowledge again. Then another one is that in development of new styles and creative work by literary men and women. So it's through research that we can have creativity. We can come up with more ideas being brought up in the literary world. And also it's through the research that generalization of theories can be done. For example, we in western part of the country, whereby we hear that ugali is mostly utilized there. So it's through research that we can generalize. We can actually go and find out whether that is true. We can respond to that. So we can do a research of 1,000 men, then we can find out how often they take ugali, and we can compare it with other regions of Kenya and see, is it true that only western part of the country mainly subsist on ugali? And then you can generalize and say for sure, either we can agree and say that westerners are western Kenya, part of Kenya mostly use ugali, they mostly subsist, or we can reject that that our alternative hypothesis. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we've looked at how important research is in our community. Therefore, let's look at some of the types of research that we have. Firstly, we have descriptive versus analytical researches. Descriptive, as the name says, descriptive, it is describing, is giving us a snapshot of the situation on the ground as it is. Whereas for analytical study, it comes from the word analyze. So this one, yes, you get the snapshot as well as you compare with what is already found before. So there's comparison of what is happening currently and what had happened before. So it can either be like that, or you have to, it can be regional. You are comparing western country and central part of the country. You are comparing men and women. So when there's such kind of a comparison, those are analytical study. They're called analytical researches. Okay, so another one is applied versus fundamental research. Applied, as the name suggests, it means action. It is action. It's brought to action. There are those research that are, they intend to address immediate problems that are there. Whereas fundamental, in this sense, these are just building up knowledge gap. Okay, thank you for that. Then another kind of research is quantitative versus qualitative. As also the name suggests, it comes from quantity. So to quantify. So any research that is done to quantify in terms of numbers, in counts, that is quantitative study. Most of the this study are done using like questionnaire. You're collecting information in questionnaire form. That is quantitative. Whereas qualitative comes to the word quality. So it looks at the quality of information you're getting. It's more of explanatory rather than descriptive. Like in this one, it can answer how many students does TVET institution have. Then this one can answer the question, why is there variation amongst the number of students that TVET institution have? So it will give you quality, it will describe, it will explain the description that is existing there. So that is qualitative versus qualitative. Then lastly, we have conceptual versus empirical. the one conceptual research are those that comes up with new ideas. They are based on abstract ideas, whereas empirical are based on experiences or observational studies. So that is conceptual versus empirical research. Now let's look at some of the challenges that researchers they face. One is lack of scientific training in methodology of research. This one is that researchers, most of them don't understand the methodology that is required. Methodology encompasses things like research designs, sample size determination. It encompasses protocols like considerations on how you are going to select techniques of selecting the samples. So this one can be challenging if a person does not have background information on this. So it's very important for researchers to have a background on methodology. The second challenge is insufficient collaboration between and among research institutions. Research institutions include like academic institutions like universities, research-related institutions like Cambridge universities. So, and also agencies like government agencies, and we also have like companies. So there's insufficient collaboration between these organs, because some of the information that Cambridge might need to do a certain research they are bared by a certain company which does not want to share that information. That is already a challenge. And also this one can some research which are conducted by certain companies probably have been done by a certain university, so they are not collaborating to see, and this one can bring about redundancy of information. So, and that is already a challenge in its own sense. Okay, so the other point is it results to duplication and waste of resources. As we've said before here, that there is no collaboration between research institutions and even amongst the researchers, and you can find some researchers have been repeated, so they are overlapping and they are producing almost the same results, and that is waste of resources which could have been channeled to something meaningful. Also, there is fear of misuse of information by the respondents, and this one can lead to withholding of important information. So some information which are collected by researchers are very sensitive. For example, to do with finance, to do with marital status, those are very important personal information, which if the respondents are feeling insecure about them, they may not share, and that can also affect the results of the research. Also, others we have like there does not exist code of conduct for researchers, and this is a challenge also. Like for example, sharing how should information be accessed. We don't have that one. Even in Kenya, particularly, students collect information, and when they collect it, they just submit their thesis minus what they had collected, which can be used for follow-up, and this information ends up lost forever. So which calls again for somebody to go and do a baseline research to collect similar information from similar study population, and that is a waste of time, waste of resource, and that is because there is no conduct for researchers that exist. Also, library management and functioning is not satisfactory at many places. It is challenging to researchers that when they go to certain maktaba, you find that they cannot get one-stop shop for all the materials that they need. So that one takes their time, so that it takes a lot of time for them to collect info, those articles, and even the books and general resources that are needed for doing the research, and that's because our library management are not satisfactory in a great sense to researchers. Then there is also difficulties of timely availability of published data from various government and their related agencies. Like an example that I can give you, a very quick one, is information published by our KDHS, Kenya Demographic Health Survey reports. The last one that we had was of 2014, and it should be published after 4 years. Now imagine if you add that one, it will be 2018. The latest should have been 2018, but up to now we are still using the one of 2014, so which is outdated information, which means that researchers are getting it very difficult to constitute background information for their research and back it up. So that's a good example. And also many other institutions are taking time for them to publish their research. You find that somebody who did a research in 2009 publishes that information in 2030. So will it be useful by that time? The problem will have metamorphosized. Also, thank you so much for listening to my presentation this afternoon. I wish you all the best, and I know research is going to be part of your life, going to solve a lot of problems that are around you, your area of study as well as your area of work. Thank you so much. Good afternoon.